I feel like recently two seemingly unrelated things have been rising at the same time: political radicalism and the amount of children struggling to read. Although they might look like they're separate problems, I believe they are interconnected. I feel like the world lost nuance, critical thinking, and, in one word, literacy. When people can't evaluate what they are seeing and what they are reading, the simplest story wins. And that story is always us versus them. Maybe you noticed it, but I feel like recently people have been taking media at face value. And movies, if they have gray area or questionable characters and morals, it's viewed as like promoting something, or they're just seen as like immoral, and no one understands why someone might have a protagonist that might not be all the way good or all the way evil. And although it might seem just like a problem that has to do with a couple of people and it doesn't really matter and doesn't connect to politics, I think it does. But what do I mean by that? When I talk about literacy, I mean the ability to understand information well enough to make sense of it, to use it, and to make your own conclusions without the author or whatever you're reading or watching not holding your hand. Let's talk about the facts. In 2024, high school seniors and 8th graders nationwide took a test by the National Assessment of Education Program. It's also known as the Nation's Report Card. And the test showed their reading scores have dropped. Only 35% scored at or above reading proficiency, and 32% scored below, the highest share ever recorded for 12th graders for basic reading. And the long-term trend is even worse. Since 1992, the scores dropped by 10%. That means that children do not understand what they are reading, let alone analyze the meaning behind words. And this is not a problem that's exclusive to children. Another study I want to talk about is by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, where they took a survey with adults aged 16 to 65 in 31 countries, including the United States. And it showed that only 13% of adults scored at level 4 or 5 in literacy, and high performers. These adults can comprehend and evaluate long, dense text across several pages, grasp complex or hidden meanings, and use prior knowledge to understand text. Only 13% of adults. People read something and take it for face value. But what does it have to do with radicalism and lack of nuance? It has to do everything with it. And trust me, I understand why people become radical and why sometimes us versus them is dependent on life. I am a queer Asian woman who is also an immigrant. So sometimes determining if someone is of the same side as me is about safety. And a lot of minorities, they need to know if they're literally safe around this person, or are they going to do something to them. But that's not what I am criticizing. What I'm criticizing is the lack of nuance in conversations about other things, not human rights. In conversations like, oh, if the country's birth rate is dropping, why is your decision is to ban abortions? How is this not a radical move? How is this helping in any way? This is where media literacy, and radicalism share an obvious connection. Radical politics thrive on certainty. They thrive on moral simplicity. They thrive on the feeling that the world is divided, that it's black and white, that there's truth and a lie, that there's enemies and heroes. And that works because when you have a big amount of people that you are trying to control or convey an idea, it's easier to share one simple idea. It's harder to share nuanced opinion to a big amount of people. It's not impossible, but it is much harder. And so when the skill of media literacy and literacy weakens, these kind of messages, they win because they are the easiest to understand. They're easiest to repeat. They tend to be absolutist, identity driven, emotionally loaded, because that's how you unite people quickly. This doesn't mean that everyone who struggles with reading becomes radical, or everyone who struggles to understand a movie becomes radical. That would be a lazy conclusion and very cruel. What I mean is that when society's information processing ability weakens, it becomes easier to radicalize, easier to manipulate. Because fewer people have the tools to resist the fake news, fewer people understand or even know where to start or who to trust, so they just take the loudest voice at face value. And once a political environment trains people to treat nuance as betrayal, asking what's the evidence can get framed as disloyalty. Asking what's the context can get framed as making excuses. Slowing down can get framed as weakness. That's how you get a culture where people feel righteous while being misinformed. So what is the solution? I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. And it's a complex, intersectional problem of a system. And if I said I know all the answers, I would have been a hypocrite. But what I do know is that people can be better. Many of these problems come from lack of resources, not lack of want. What can we do? We can understand this problem, maybe internalize it and think, where am I believing too much? Where am I taking things too at face value? Am I in my own bubble? If you have children or siblings or even just yourself, start questioning the media. Even simplest action movies could have an idea behind them. Who created it? What's the background of this person who created this piece of media? What are they trying to portray? What I like to do is I like to take fictional media and apply it to real life. For example, if the main character is an orphan and lost his parents, but the movie doesn't make a big emphasis on it and treats it as just a fact over the backstory, I still like to think about what is the main hero doing that shows his grief, that shows that he was raised without parents and maybe thinks that the character doesn't understand. And I also think this is a more fun way to treat piece of media, any kind, news, even TikToks. Because when you just take what is given to you and accept it at the face value, that's kind of boring. It's more fun to make your own decisions and your own conclusions. And they don't have to align with what the person originally meant to do with it, because you can look past it and make your own conclusions. I just feel like this was something important to say, and thank you for watching this.